you guys don't know, I'm an aspiring writer and director. I've written a few scripts. I haven't produced anything yet, but I've written a few scripts. I love coming up with stories and stuff to write. So here's my take on what Superman 2 could be. Lois Lane and Superman, they keep getting into like a fight. Superman keeps saving Lois when she doesn't want to be saved from like basically anything. She'd be like chopping vegetables in the kitchen and she'd like cut herself or something and he'd be like, you okay? You okay? Like he'd only care about her. Like he'd be in a big fight with like a monster or something and he'd hear her like scream about something and he'd just like rush over and like let the monster destroy the city or whatever while he's going after her to make sure she's safe. Superman basically is only saving Lois. And Lois is like, I'm a reporter. You know, I have to go do dangerous stuff. Let me live my life without you being there all the time. Don't come after me all the time. You know, you're fighting monsters, you're fighting bad guys. Like, fight them and then help me after. So the way he'd know she's in trouble is like, he can hear her from like a distance, like really far away. And he'd hear like scream or hear her say like, Superman, or he'd hear her do something, and then he'd just like fly and rush over without a second thought. She's sick of it. So the bad guy would still be Lex Luthor, and the bad thing he's trying to do is to get the world to turn against Superman again. And he's trying to convince Superman, he's like, the world's gonna turn on you. Like that's what he's saying throughout the movie. The world's gonna turn on you. So Lex's plan is to destroy the city and have Superman not be able to stop it. I don't have the full story on like every single thing that happens, but I have the ending, which is what I thought of first, before I even had the other stuff. So the ending would be Lex Luthor captures Lois knowing Superman's gonna come because he wants Superman to show up. So Lex launches missiles and Superman, of course, goes after him. There's like 5 or 6 missiles or whatever. But at the same time, Lex has Lois at LexCorp while she's like sitting on the floor and he has a gun door saying, call for Superman. Lex figured out that whenever Lois calls for him and he just like flies right to her. So she realizes not to call for him because she realizes what Lex did, that he shot missiles and that Superman's trying to stop the missiles. So if she calls for him, he's gonna come there, the city would be blown up. And then there's some slow motion of him getting ready to pull the trigger. Kind of like in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he couldn't save Gwen. It's all in like slow motion. And you can see like a close-up of her like mouthing Superman. So she like whispers it. And then you can like see Superman trying to stop the missiles and he's on like the last missile. Like out of like 5 or 6 or how many missiles are. So he like looks over, he can hear his name being called by her. Because he has like good hearing or whatever, I think. Hopefully, otherwise this doesn't work. Pushing the last missile away. And he flies as fast as he can to her. Ripping through buildings or ripping past buildings or whatever as fast as he possibly can. It breaks through the window of LexCorp and the bullet from the gun's coming towards Lois, like really slowly. So he grabs her as the bullet hits her. So he's holding her as she's dying and then Lois dies in his arms. So he lets out a scream kind of like at the end of Man of Steel. So Lex walks around him while he's on his knees holding her. So Lex is pretty much taunting Superman saying, I told you the world would turn against you. It's a cruel world. Back angle of him. So you can see like Lois there and he's on his knees and holding her. And he says, he's like, you're right. And then as fast as he possibly can, he grabs Lex by the throat and just jets up through the roof. And then goes right to space, Lex in his hand, and he pushes Lex away. And then Superman's just like, you know, floating there because he can fly. So then Superman looks at a picture of his old parents, like where that video was when they told him like pretty much he's evil. And he looks at that and he's like, I guess they were right. And then it like cuts right there. That'd be perfect to set up Batman v Superman.